Do you think one of these days we will learn to do a prayer in Hebrew?
Yeah, it might take just a little bit after we get the the actual alphabet down and stuff, but yeah, we can definitely work toward that and then start incorporating that type of vocabulary in. Yeah.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, because that's like one of the first things in the MTC, right? You have to learn how to pray right off the get-go. Um, so let's see, I'm bringing up lesson 7 here. So we've learned all of our vowels. We're just going to get some more practice with those today. And then we're going to learn these 4 new consonants. So we've got noon, and it also has a final form, nun sofit, samech, and ayin. So these take some of these are actually kind of the harder ones to put a picture to. But noon looks like a nose in this book. That's a stretch, I think, because most noses don't look like that. But in this little cute cartoon character, that's what it looks like on its face. Um, it kind of looks like a half, but very shortened, very pressed. And in its final form, it drops its tail and it looks like a nail. So noon looks like a nose and like a nail. And then samech looks like the snake that's turning in on itself. There's a couple different variations if you're looking at ballpoint or calligraphy or whatever. But basically, it looks like an English O. It's kind of a stylized O, but that's generally what, anytime you're seeing a Hebrew O, that's what this samach is going to be. And then ayin looks like this guy reading a book. And because he's reading in a library, it's silent. And so we now have 2 silent consonants. We have aleph and ayin. So it's kind of interesting, but it looks like a Y pretty much. We'll take a look at how it's distinguished from the other consonants here in a bit, but those are our 3 new consonants for this week: Nun, Samech, and Ayin. So if we're looking in the ballpoint, let's take a look at these new ones that we've got. So we've got Nun here in the bottom of the left-hand side. We've got noon. So like I said, it kind of looks like a half, except that it's scrunched up. So it's got a top and a bottom that are very short and a long vertical. So noon, and then its final form, so the sofit is up here in the upper right-hand corner. So it drops its tail, and it looks very much like a vav, but the tail goes down below the baseline, so that you'd be able to distinguish one versus the other. So nun and nun sofit. Then we've got samech. Now, it's kind of tricky because I just told you it looks like an O, and it does, but in ballpoint, it's kind of like a stylized version of it. You can have it more rounded if you'd like. I see it in lots of various different ways. But the important thing with samech is that this little top part is sticking out to the left just a little bit. That's very characteristic of the samech. If you had that tail and then a complete O, we'd be able to recognize it fairly easily. But if you want to write it in kind of more of the square, blocky ballpoint, you would do the the left-hand side and the upper as straight lines, with the right being a curved line. So we've got samech. Samech is often confused with mem. Mem is basically the full-on square, And samech has a little bit of a round to it. But again, you could just do a circle for samech and a square for mem. But these are often confused as we're looking at our ballpoint forms. And then we've
I
got
think Samek looks like a place where you hang people.
yeah, one of those what do they call them?
Yeah, whatever you call it.
Like a guillotine place, like one of those. Yeah. Um, all right, and then we've got ayin. So ayin doesn't necessarily get confused with anything at this point. We've got a couple more letters that it'll get confused with, but sometimes it's confused with gimel or aleph. But for now, it's fairly unique. It's kind of that Y that we've got. Oh, and I forgot. So these are all, well, noon and samech are pronounced just like we would expect. Noon is pronounced n as in nail, and samech is pronounced s as in snake. And then ayin, which we've covered, is one of the silent ones. So we've got three different pairs of similar sounds. So we've got chaf and het that are pronounced with that guttural as in Bach. We've got ayin and aleph, which are both silent. And then we've got vet and vav, which are v as in volley. So taking a look at the final forms that we've got so far, we've learned three of them. We've got chaf, mem, and nun. We have yet to learn Fei and Sadi, but they'll come up in these coming weeks. So the final forms, anytime that these five consonants appear at the end of a word, they drop their tail, except for mem, because mem is kind of an exception where it closes off its tail, as we see here. So chaf and nun, the ones that we've learned so far, instead of having their horizontal base, they drop their tail and have a long right vertical. So chaf, mem, nun, and when they appear at the end of a sentence, or sorry, an end of a word, chaf sofit, mem sofit, and nun sofit. They don't change their pronunciation at all. They just change their form. All right, so let's take a look at our very simplified vowel chart. These are all of the vowel sounds that we've learned so far. Ignore the very bottom line here, the gesh and stress and all that. We're just taking a look today at all of the vowels that we've learned. I need to get my light so it doesn't flick off during class. All right, so zooming in, we've got each one, we're going to take a look at both of their sounds. So we've got patach and kamatz, and they have the ah sound. Ah as in father. And all of these being from an English dialect here. When we have the triangle formation of the dots underneath, the triple dot, it is called a segol, or it can be a segol yod, or a segol malay, right? And it's pronounced as in bed, segol. All of the names of the vowels carry the sound that they make, segol. When we have a single dot underneath, we've got hirik and hirik malay, or hirik yod. And that is pronounced E as in C. If we have two dots underneath the consonant, this is what's called tsere, or tsere yod, tsere malay. And it's pronounced A as in day. Then we've got the O sound. So this one's kind of tricky, as we see here, because when it has a companion consonant, then it looks a little bit different, but it's pronounced the same. So if it doesn't have its companion consonant, the dot is up and left of the consonant, and that is called a holam. But if it does have the companion consonant, then that dot migrates even further left and appears above the vav. And so this is called holam malay. And the dot's going to appear just right above that. So it can kind of get confusing, but just knowing that this is the only vowel where the dot is above the consonants. Both of these would be pronounced O, as in story. Story. Then we have our last two, and I think that these are probably the most confused vowels. These are kind of the harder ones to get because we just don't get enough practice with them. They're not as common as all of the rest. But we have kibbutz and shuruk. And simplified, again, all of these are very simplified because there is a nuance to all of these. They're different, but yet we're simplifying them into kind of a similar sound of oo. Oo as in boot, kibbutz and shuruk. So in the coming weeks, we starting next week, we'll actually start differentiating all of these and how they actually sound different and when we would use one versus the other. And it all depends on syllable structure. That's how we get that. So again, these are very simplified versions of all these, because even though I have them grouped together here, that they make the same sound, they actually make a little bit of a different sound, and we'll learn the complexities of that in the coming lessons. But this is the just the very basics. So we've got a, e, I, o, u. We've got all of those sounds here that we've now got under our belt. Now we just need some practice getting them perfected. All right, so let's take a look at our alphabet song with these new consonants that we've got so far. So just reading through these, and then I'm going to start singing them. But we've got Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Chaf, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin. And so with our singing, so I'll sing it once through, and then we'll do kind of the repeat echo version that we've started to get used to. But again, hopefully this song is starting to ring in your ears all week long as you're practicing Hebrew. So we've got Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Haf, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pe, Fe. I throw those last two in because it's kind of part of that little triad there. But all right, so let's do that in the echo. If anybody wants to participate, you're more than welcome to. But anyway, so I'll do the first three, and then you'll do the same three, and we'll kind of echo it back and forth. Aleph, Bet, Vet, Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Haf, Kaf, Yod, Haf, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun,
Lamed,
Mem,
Mem,
Nun, Samech, Ayin. That's kind of weird where we don't have the pay and fay on there yet, but maybe I should organize my lessons so that they come in those natural blocks of the song. But anyway, hopefully that's starting to come through, and we're memorizing that alphabet song so that it just rolls off the tongue. You'll find that very helpful as you go in and start actually reading and you come across a letter that you're just not totally sure where it's at, if you start singing the alphabet song, those will really start helping in the sight reading of things. So let's take a quick review of Dagesh. So we've got Dagesh, which occurs in the middle of the consonants. There's two different kinds of Dagesh. As we've learned before, we've got Dagesh Chazak, which is here on the right, and it's called the doubling dot. So if you have a Dagesh with a Lamed, or rather a Lamed with a Dagesh, then it acts as two different L sounds just put together. We use that a lot in English and other languages. Anytime that you need to double the consonant, rather than writing two Lameds side by side, we would put a Lamed with a dot and know that it's doubled. So that is called Dagesh Chazak. Now, Dagesh Kal, on the other hand, is something that we just have to memorize. There are 6 different consonants that when they receive a Dagesh, when they receive that beauty mark, that they actually change the way they sound rather than just double. So does anyone remember the acronym or the thing that helps us remember or memorize these Dagesh Kal? It's called Beged Kefet. So Beged Kefet is actually our 2 actual words in Hebrew, and that's why we arrange them in this way. And anyway, Beged Kefet is the acronym that helps us remember the Gesh call. So we've practiced a few different ways to try to have these memorized and roll off of our tongue. You can do them with their vowel sounds or just do their consonant sounds by themselves. So with their vowels, be, ge, d, ke, fe, t, beged, kefet, beged, kefet. Or if you're just leaving those vowels out, beged, kefet, beged, kefet, beged, kefet. And hopefully that can start to roll off your tongue as well. That's kind of a little bit trickier, but anyway, Beged Kefetz is something that you're going to want to memorize because anytime that you see Dagesh, you're going to want to run through your mind, oh, is this one of the Beged Kefetz? Does it change its sound? Or is it a doubling dot? So Beged Kefet. So the Dagesh are very important because they really modify the words that we're going to be seeing. All right, so here's our practice for the day. I've got quite a few of these. These are actual biblical names, so names of people that appear in the, let's see, I think I've got most of these just from like Old Testament times. I think there might be one from kind of New Testament era, but anyway, practice sounding these out and see if you can guess who they are. Actually, let's see. Just a second. Let me do I'm sharing my screen wrong. I can't actually see what's on my screen. Yeah.
Sure.
Just a second. There we go. Sorry about that. Sometimes my computer just decides to change its format on me. All right. So, what is this biblical name?
God.
We've got God. So, in English, we would pronounce this as Gad with a kind of a long A sound. But in Hebrew, it's God. God. All right, this one's a tricky one because in English, it doesn't sound like this at all. They've totally got another name for this. So let's practice sounding this one out.
Huh?
Yeah, so we've got ha,
Ha, va,
ha, va, hava. Hava is the name of Eve. So as in Adam and Eve, Hava.
Hey, Cameron,
Mhm.
why is there a vav or a dagesh with that vav?
Yeah, exactly. This is where it kind of gets tricky, right?
Okay.
So if we take a look back at our Dagesh here, we
Oh, right there.
yeah, so it can be one of two things. So it can either be this doubling Dagesh, or it could be,
Beged Kefitz. Or the Sharuk. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
so yeah, it comes down to being able to sound things out and memorize what things are acting as what. So
Yeah.
let's pronounce this word both ways. So if we're doing it as a doubled vav, we've got ha, v. So hav, va, hava.
va.
And so we're kind of doubling that vav. But if we were doing it as the oo sound, it wouldn't carry that second
Right.
vowel
Yeah,
underneath
you
of it.
wouldn't. Yeah, you would never, well, we'll never say never, but you wouldn't have a vowel after a Sharuk, right?
Correct. Yeah, you would have like maybe
An
an
aleph
owl
or something.
or something like that in order to carry the second vowel. And
Right.
so let's pretend that we did have an aleph that was in between those. So we would pronounce it as ha, ooah, which would be really weird. Hawa.
Oh, wow.
And so here, since we know our vowels and know that we can't have two vowels side by side, then that is going to signal to us that this is a doubled vav with that dot there. So chav, va, chava, hava being Eve. And so I'll have all of these slides on Learning Zion, but if you want to write them down, I'll kind of go slow so we give each other time. But chava, Adam y Chava. And this one you're going to want to just memorize because it's all over everywhere. We're going to be using it all the time. You want to just be able to sight read this one. So
David.
David. David. Re David. Well, I guess, sorry. That's bad. Yeah.
Would that dalit be pronounced, that end dalit be duh? Or is that
Yeah, you're going to pronounce it with your tongue in between your teeth and doing kind of like a TH sound.
that?
David.
That's what I'm
David.
thinking. Okay, cool.
Mhm. And so that first one, we know that it's the hard D because of its dagesh. So David. Yeah. All right, this one's kind of a tricky one. We start with that vowel sound.
Ayov?
Yov. So,
Eov. Why was I saying?
yep,
Eov. Gosh.
yep. Herik is that E, and so we
Yeah.
go straight into the ya. So Eov, Eov. So that's where English and Hebrew take a drastic difference. So anytime that we're starting a word with E, it's usually the equivalent of a English J. So Yov is Job in our English. Eov is Job. All right, let's try this one. Now we haven't covered the Shava, but anytime we have those two vertical dots where the vowel should be, it's basically just kind of like a break or a breath or a shortening of the consonant above it. So basically, just kind of ignore them in these until we actually cover Shava. I believe that's next week. But anyway, uh, it kind of it needs a vowel underneath of it, and so they put a shava, even though it just kind of flows from there. So
Oh,
we've got,
Yehuda.
yep. So this is the name for Judah, and it's Yehuda, Yehuda, Yehuda. Now it's kind of tricky because that seems really long for the short name that it is, but Yehuda. Now, when we get into our syllable structures, we'll see why that emphasis is at the end there, Yehuda, rather than Yehuda. Right.
So it would have a stress on the D then?
Yes. Over the dalet, it'll have the stress here. So Yehuda. Yehuda. Yep. And here we have
Adam.
Hav's companion.
Adam.
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 Yep. This is Adam, which is an easy one. Rather than Eve's, which is very confusing. It's very different in all the languages. They have a different way to say that, but Adam usually carries through fairly similar in most. All right, this one is a biblical woman with the patriarchal age.
Bilha.
Yep. Bilha. Bilha. All right, this is another woman.
Delilah.
So in English, Delilah. In Hebrew, we've got Delilah. Delilah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's fun to learn these, isn't it? We've got enough consonants and vowels under our belt that we actually can, which is nice.
Aliyahu.
Yeah. Aliyahu.
So which prophet is this? In English, anyway.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to think now.
Elijah.
Oh,
Yep, Elijah.
good job.
So
Hey,
let's practice
was
sounding
just
that one
guess.
out.
Awesome.
Yep, so we've got Eli, Eliyahu, Eliyahu. Eliyahu is the prophet Elijah. So, I mean, this one, if you ever go to Shabbat service or any of the feasts, those celebrations, you're going to hear Eliyahu a lot in a lot of the different songs and prayers. Eliyahu, Eliyahu. All right, this is one of the first people on earth.
Hevel.
Hevel, Hevel. Sorry, I put a little bit too much spit it in that one. No, sorry. Hevel. Hevel is Abel. Hevel. So many times when we're going from like English to Hebrew, B's become V's and V's become B's. That's kind of common, like in Spanish. That's the way it is as well. Some of the Romance languages. And so Hevel is Abel.
Sometimes I wonder where they got the English words from it.
Yeah, I don't know. English is so weird. All right, and this is a biblical matriarch. Yeah, Leah, Leah.
Is it Egypt? Yeah.
All right, this is a Book of Mormon. I mean, it's biblical.
Lemuel.
Lemuel.
So this is Lemuel, and so we've got Lemuel, Lemuel. 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 Yep. Sometimes they're kind of tricky, because we know them so well by whatever English or otherwise, and so sometimes it's kind of tricky to put some different vowels in there that we're not typically used to. Lemuel.
Pronounce it even differently. And when I read it, Lemuel in Dutch.
Oh, Lemuel. Yep. All right, this is one of the 12 sons.
Levi.
Levi. Levi is Levi.
A stress mark. So does the stress come on the vowel?
Yeah, the stress comes on the last syllable of every word, unless it's otherwise noted. So this one would be Levi. Right. This is a famous brother. Well, not brother.
Lot.
Yep. Lot. Lot. So in English, lot.
As a long O, load, or lot.
Lot in Hebrew. In English, it's lot. In Hebrew, it's lot.
Yeah, and that's just lot also.
Okay. All right. This is, I don't know. Should I give clues or not? This is a prophet that is quoted in every canon.
Oh, Malachi. Okay, Malachi.
Malachi.
Is it Malachi in English?
Yeah. Malachi is Malachi.
Yeah, we say Malachi. Okay.
Malachi. Oh, interesting. Malachi. Now this one is the trickiest one. Try sounding that one out.
Matiyahu.
Yep. Matityahu. So
what does it mean?
Eventually, when we transpose it into the Greek, it becomes Matthew. But there is one biblical occurrence of Matityahu in the Old Testament as well. But yeah, so if we're looking at the Gospels and trying to translate them from the Greek back into the Hebrew, this would be Matthew. Matityahu.
Oh, I would have never guessed.
Yep, it's kind of a crazy one. Right.
Michael.
Michael.
Yep.
Ah, all
So,
right.
English
Got
Michael. Michael. So this is another interesting one.
Joel. Joel.
In English, Joel. So this is Yoel. 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 So this is our new Ayin, which is silent.
Amos.
Amos. I am.
Amos.
Yeah. So in English, it's Amos. In Hebrew, we are looking at Amos. Amos.
Yeah. Then. Yeah. Oh, Benjamin.
Yeah, Benjamin. So we've got Bin, Ya, Min, Binyamin. And so here we've got that noon, which we learned this week, but it's at the end of the word, and so it drops its tail. And sometimes that kind of throws us off when we're learning it. But that is a noon. Bin, Ya, Min.
Boet. Boa. Boet.
Uh-huh.
No, it's West.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Zayn. Yeah, Boet.
Yeah, Zayin here. That one is tricky because it looks like a lot of different things, huh? But we've got Bo and then a silent as, Boaz.
Anna.
Hannah, which is Hannah in English. We put the stress. Basically, the only thing that changes is where the stress is put from English to Hebrew. So in Hebrew,
Now,
Hannah.
how if it's Hannah, that it's not a hey, but a het.
Oh, yes, yes. So that first one is the ch, and then the last one is the hey. So Hannah. Good catch. I messed up on that one. Hannah. And so here with that noon in the middle, it has a dagesh, and it's not one of the beged kefets, and so it has a double noon. So chan na, chana.
Oops, lost
Yeah, good catch. This is probably one of the trickier ones as well.
you. No.
Yeah, so ha, ha, no,
No.
because this is the chaf, and because it's at the end, it drops its tail. So we begin and end with the same sound. So we've got ha, no, hanoch. Any guess which prophet this is? This is Enoch.
Oh,
Hanoch is
oh,
Enoch.
no. No. Okay.
Mhm.
No.
So it's basically in English we have E, and in Hebrew we have cha. But the noch is what really kind of helps us connect with it from one language to the other. Enoch versus Hanoch.
Then done.
Yeah, in English it is Dan. In Hebrew, Don.
Honey.
Is
Yep.
it Daniel?
Yep. So we've got Da, Ni, Yale. Daniel.
Because the two dots belong to the Aleph, right?
Yeah. So this one's a tricky one. This is a grammatical exception. So it doesn't follow the same rules that everything else does. And I have yet to find somebody that actually knows why that aleph is in there. But yes, the dots kind of belong under the aleph, but yet they're located under the yod for some reason.
Yeah, they should have moved a little bit to the left.
Yeah. So when we're looking at it without any of the dots, without any of the training wheels that we have, you will see Daniel with an aleph in there, but it's one of those exceptions where I don't know why they decided to put the two dots underneath the yod. I'm gonna try to figure that out when I get with somebody that knows. But Daniel. All right, and this is a female.
Dina.
So in English, we pronounce her name as Dinah, and here her name is Dina.
Now in English, do you have Dinah with an H at the end?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. Dinah.
You don't.
This one's a really tricky one because in
But
English we do it very different.
You don't.
So Gidon. Gidon is Gideon.
What have an ayin then?
I don't know. It's very tricky. I've wondered that for a lot of these names. But yeah, so we've got Give, Give.
Class, right, I'll call you back later.
Gidon is Gideon.
What? Kilot?
Gilad. Gilad. So
Is
in
that
English, we do Gilead. So if you're starting to see a pattern with these past two, that the ayin is silent, but it does tend to, at least when we're translating it into the English, take on a little bit of a y sound, right? It's not much, but it's slightly there. So Gideon, Gideon versus Gilead, Gilead. So I don't know. I've met Hebrew speakers that do it both ways. Sometimes I've heard this pronounced as Gilad, and sometimes I've heard it as Gilead.
Now, why is it an ayin and not a yod?
Yeah, I would expect it to be a yod sound if it was to do that y sound, but it's basically like a shortened version of the yod with some dialects. Not everybody pronounces it that way, but it seems to somewhat take on that y sound. So I don't know, whichever one you want to memorize.
Difficult, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult. When we get to the word for goat, is, we'll start to even see kind of a different nuance to it. All right, I think we've got 3 more.
Oh, Laban.
Yeah, English Laban, in Hebrew
Oh.
Lavan. Lavan.
Why isn't that a bet?
Yeah, in many languages, B's become V's and V's become B's. I don't know why English is the way that it is, but yeah.
English is a difficult language.
Yeah. But in Hebrew, we've got Lavan.
Oh.
Now, this one is tricky because this is a grammatical exception as well.
No. Nocha. Nocha is something that you eat. Nocha.
No,
Yep, this is the prophet Noah, but it is pronounced differently because this is one of those grammatical exceptions where we don't know why there's not another aleph or an ayin in there. But it's called a furtive patach, which we'll learn about in future lessons, and we'll really cover it well. But we, anytime that we're having the sound at the end of a word, if it carries the vowel after it, the vowel is actually pronounced before it. So it's confusing, but we'll get there. So this would be pronounced no ach, noach. So my prophet song with prophet Noah had a boat. Noach navi Noach aitateva iya iya. All right, and this is our last one. This one's kind of a difficult one, but
Zeppelin.
So we've got Zev, U, Lun. So in English, Zebulun. So that B turns into a V. Zevulun. 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 It's kind of a tricky one, but I thought I'd throw it in there anyway. So I've taken all of the different names that come in the Bible there and organized them by lesson. And so for lesson 7, we've actually tackled about half of them. We tackled the more popular half. The other half are kind of rare names that don't occur very often. So I'll include those in future things, but these are the most common 31 names that we actually know the letters for so far. Hopefully that's not too tricky, but I think it's fun because in previous lessons, we've been really focusing on transliterating English words with Hebrew letters. But here, we've got enough under our belt that we can actually start learning some actual Hebrew names and that are a little bit familiar to us. So hopefully those resonate with you guys this week. Again, I'll post these on Learning Zion there so that you can take a look and practice through them. I haven't got the flashcards quite yet on Quizlet, but I will get those and have a link there on Learning Zion so that you can just use these as flashcards and start memorizing them. So ones like Boaz or Levi are going to be ones that you want to sight read. Oh, and David, because we're going to be using David extensively in a lot of our different things. It's a very popular word to, you want to just be able to look at it and immediately know what it is rather than having to sound it out. So just kind of take some of these and really get them memorized under your belt, kind of a thing. It'll be very helpful in the weeks ahead. Let me just kind of do a quick recap of what we've covered today, and then we'll ask for questions. All right, so for this week, we're doing 3 new consonants, and one of them has a final form. So we've got Nun, Nun Sofit, Samech, and Ayin. So Ayin is the tricky one, that it's Sephardic, it's silent, but yet it does have a nuance where sometimes it kind of takes on a little bit of a yeah sound. And then we covered some of these similar sounds and the final forms, and then our simplified vowel chart. Next week is our first week in the more advanced vowel chart, so you're going to want to make sure to be able to recognize these and know the difference between one versus its companion. When it has a companion consonant, being able to identify them by name. So patach, kamatz, segol, segol malay, hirik, hirik malay, etc. Because when we get into the more advanced vowel chart next week, we'll start seeing why these come into play and why they have different sounds to them. And then the alphabet song, making sure to get that memorized so far so that we can start singing that together. And then we also went over the dagesh as kind of a review. Next week, we'll really hit syllables hard and start really getting those under our belt, because that is going to really play into our vowel charts and determining which vowels we're going to use when. But making sure that you've got beged kefets down and learning what those middle dots do to a consonant, whether they double it or whether they change the sound, that's going to be crucial going forward. Yeah, any questions or anything? If not, we've got our Thursday group will be meeting this week if you'd like some more practice with it. I'm still working on my worksheets. I've almost got them done for the entire course, so that we can have those to practice with and everything. I don't think there's any other announcements or housekeeping things, but anyway, if you have questions in the meantime, let me know, and we'll catch you next. Let me make sure. Let me look at my calendar because I have been losing my brain lately. Do September 4th. September 4th, Labor Day. Do we want to do it on Labor Day? I don't know if that's an interruption for people.
Well, some people might leave.
Mhm.
Have a long or something.
Yeah. Let's keep it, and if anybody needs to miss, that's totally fine. You can watch the video later, but to keep our Monday and Thursday groups aligned and stuff, let's still go ahead and we'll meet next week, but if you need to miss, that's totally fine. But yeah, all right. Well, have a great week, everyone. Shalom. Have a happy learning spell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.